Kirk Cousins has this offense humming.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tanitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Atlanta Football Party is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Coach Raheem Morris said earlier this year he wanted to outrun the South. And for the first time in a decade, the Falcons are 4-0 in the division because they're doing what Coach Ross said he wanted to do. So let's talk about how the Falcons walked in their trap and took their trap. So Kirk Cousins' MVP campaign season in Minnesota ended in week 8 in 2023 with a ruptured Achilles. But what a difference a year makes. Cousins looks like he's all the way back and is making everyone around him play at a higher level. And Tori, I want to start with you because it was a tweet that you put out that kind of inspired this question and this thought. So what do you see in how Kirko has approached his quote unquote comeback that has the Falcons sitting where they are, which is solidly atop the division?
Yeah, I don't think it was lost on him kind of where the season was and going into week 8 and understanding kind of the repercussions of week 8 last year and kind of having that in the back of his mind. And I think it was probably what led to this moment that a lot of guys in the locker room talked about post-game, where he addressed the team on Friday and kind of said it was almost like a challenge to a certain extent, as well as an encouragement, where it was like, hey, like, tough things don't last, tough people do, was kind of the gist of it. But then Jessie Bates was telling us, he was like, but there was also this other underlying challenge of, hey, we have 4 weeks until the bye week. And a lot of teams would kind of like falter off a little, fold a little here, fold a little there. Like, be intentional about the work over the next 4 weeks so that you can go into the bye feeling as good as you possibly can because you have some wins in your back pocket. And this win against Tampa Bay was that very first one. Now, was it perfect? No, definitely not. But they found a way to win in the end. And they kind of held on. And I know there aren't any moral victories, but to be 4-0 in the division is important. And we can't overlook that. But the thing is, both things can be true at the same time. You can expect more from this team while also understanding that they're 4-0 in the division. So I think all of that was probably in the back of his head when he's having these conversations with these players in this team meeting that I think really hammered home a point to a lot of these guys. And it really showed me that this is Kirk Cousins' team. He is the point of the spear that everybody's following behind.
Yeah. And what about you, Free? When you think about Kirk's performance, yes, last night, but you could really even say as he's progressed across the season to get to this point, what in him on and off the field has this team at the top of the division?
Well, we talked about it throughout the summer. It's like he's the grown-up in the room that the team desperately needed. I think as Tori is sort of discussing, like, you know, people are marching to his beat. And I think specifically if we're looking back at this Bucs game, you know, we're looking back at the, you know, those runs that he had in the fourth quarter where, you know, coming off of the Achilles, it being a year removed from that, you know, it takes over a year typically for players to really start to look like their old selves recovering from that injury. And, you know, while I won't necessarily say like, oh, it means Kirk is fully back and we're going to start seeing him scrambling for 13 yards every single week, I do think it does indicate that like he's on that road to recovery and we can, you know, expect a little more from him moving forward in terms of the mobility. I still think it's probably going to be an issue at times, but I do think you can say, okay, like he's on the path to recovery and maybe we'll get, you know, maybe one other 13-yard scramble at least at some point later this season when the team so desperately needs it like they did on Sunday against Tampa Bay.
Or maybe he'll just best his 21-yarder and he'll get his Randall Cunningham on more times than we think about. Or maybe his Michael Vick on. We'll see. But Jarvis, when you look at where Kirk has brought this team from the first week where everybody was just questioning so much about who Kirk Cousins is and what he could be for this team to where he is, not just now, but even I juxtapose the win against the Bucs about a week and a half or so ago, where your historic numbers, 509 yards, but an efficient 276 yards, same result. You get 4 touchdowns, same result, you get a win. So what about him for you has been maybe that key to where the Falcons sit now?
I think back to all the conversations that people were having, talking about, oh, Kirk is hurt. Oh, Kirk can't move. Oh, Kirk can't do this. And you think Kirk Cousins didn't hear those things? I feel like he's leading by example. What I mean when I say that is he's put himself out there on the line. He's put himself out of risk, not just being a year removed from tearing his Achilles at 36 years old. Because most guys don't come back from those injuries like that, especially when you're at that age. Look at what Aaron Rodgers is doing. He doesn't look good at all, right? So we talking about him kind of fade to black as far as his career goes. But Kirk Cousins, a guy who has suffered a potential career in the injury, he's out there going out there and rushing for 13 yards to go try to get the first down for his team so he can try to run that clock out. Or he's getting the quarterback sneak, right? You don't see older quarterbacks doing that in this league nowadays, right? They leave those for the young guys who got those fresh legs. So for him to kind of, those two particular plays really stood out to me, because I feel like he's going out there and saying, hey, guys, if I could do this, you can do it too. And I love his relationship with Kyle Pitts. The fact that he's on him constantly saying, hey, man, I need you to play like you are. Like, you look like Tarzan. Play like Tarzan, dog. And I feel like he did that. Just it was one particular play. I was just like, I was kind of taken aback by it. I think it was I forgot the young man name that it was the corner on the backside corner had kind of come up here to press him, right? And he came up, he got a nice little jam on him, but Kyle Pitts swimped and got off of him. And then, and Kirk Cousins put it up in the air and he went and got it. And, you think about those type of things that, that we think that Kyle Pitts should be doing. He did those things. Aaron and I talked about this on Locked On Falcons. I was like, hey, man, this dude was drafted very, very high. So obviously you have a very high level of talent. So let's see that if you get matched up against Antoine Whitfield, who, we ain't gonna talk about that touchdown. So we're just gonna thank the tight end guys like
It was National Tight Ends Day. It had to happen that way.
Just keep it moving. But yeah, I feel like Kirk is just really doing a lot of good things. Not only just saying those things, and when you had those, like Tori mentioned in the meeting, but just going out on the field and doing it and executing, because it's obvious that Todd Bowles respects the hell out of doggone what Kirk can do as a quarterback. So, and we haven't had that respect in quite some time.
Indeed. And Tori, Jarvis kind of mentioned it, so I want to kind of piggyback on what he said about that quarterback sneak. The Falcons are also now 9 of 13 on fourth downs this season, top 10 in the NFL. And when you think about where they were last season, they've converted more fourth down attempts in half a season than they did in the entirety of 2023. So for you, what's been that difference in their ability when down and distance is not quite in their favor?
I mean, I think that when I look back, and I haven't gone through and looked at every single fourth down that, reviewed it, but I do think that you have to give credit where credit is due to, one, having the guts to do it, and two, like having the right call for the moment. And I think because it hasn't all been the same call over and over again. It's not like they're just sneaking it every single time. That was the first time that we've seen that happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that having these things like scripted out and having conviction in your guys to be able to go and do it. There have been a lot of fourth downs over the course of especially the last few weeks that have been the difference in some key momentum swings. And so I don't know, there's almost like this flip that you have to switch, like where it's like you got to have it. And for some reason, this team has been able to time and time again figure out a way to get that first down, even on fourth down. Now, could we say that they need to be better on first, second, and third down and not put yourself in the fourth down situation?
True.
Of course. But you take what you can take. Both can be. Again, I'm just like a broken record at this point. Both things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it goes back to a point I made earlier where I think that you look at a lot of their success. You look at, the Drake London conversions, you look at the Darnell Mooney conversions and whatnot, that it goes back to, having a grown up in the room, having a quarterback that you believe can execute those plays and seeing a receiver group in this case with Mooney, with London, and then, on Sunday with Kyle Pitts getting that first touchdown off of a fourth down, a receiver group that's responding to having that grown up in the room, and you're seeing it sort of coalesce in those do or die situations like we have on these fourth down situations where they are much more capable than they have been in the past of executing in those situations, and that's across the board, whether you want to talk about the quarterback, you want to talk about the receivers, you can throw the offensive line and the running game into that conversation as well. It just feels like this team, while again, as Tori indicates, like it's by no means perfect because they could be better in terms of some of that early down stuff, but they're working their way to being that more of that well-oiled machine, and hopefully by years in we will kind of see this fourth down execution on all three downs to the point that we won't need to worry about that fourth down execution anymore. So I think that's where they're at this point.
And I think Raheem Morris's mindset, as far as fourth downs, and I think coming into this game, he knew exactly where he needed to be. They needed to get 30 plus. They knew what type of game this was going to be, and touchdowns are going to get you there, not necessarily field goals. So I think that him having the mindset, hey, we're going to go for it here. And when a head coach says those type of things, players understand, and they understand that, hey, my coach believes in me. He believes that we can get it done. And then it all starts with the quarterback. And I think Kirko is just been that guy. When you put the ball in his hands, when you need those 6, 7, 13 yards, 14 yards, he's going to go out there and get it for you and be able to get that team in the end zone.
Indeed. So now maybe a slightly different take on Ben, but don't break. We'll discuss when we take it under further review. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Now, it isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Now, terms and conditions do apply, but do what 2.5 million small businesses are doing, and that's using LinkedIn for hiring. Go to linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just get more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Texas, and right here in Georgia. And it's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an insurance policy. That's an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. And if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's Prize Picks. Download that app as soon as you finish watching the Atlanta Football Party and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Go to Prize Picks because Prize Picks helps you run your game. So, Jarvis, I would like to introduce a new concept to you that Free and I brainstormed on yesterday. Instead of the bend but don't break mantra, because we feel like Tori said, like we're a broken record with that one. So we said, okay, we're going to go with the Oreo effect. So you know how with the Oreo cookie, the cream is kind of the best part. Okay, this time we're going to switch it up. the outside of that cookie is going to be the best part for this example. So kind of like the Falcons defense Sunday. On this end, some good things. On this end, some good things. In the middle, kind of got a little shaky. But for you, what was the best part of the Falcons defense? Some of the things you saw in the beginning of the game that you really liked?
I feel like I saw what this defense can be capable of from an identity standpoint. And for me, I'm tired of sounding like a broken record. Hey, they need to sack quarterback. Hey, they need to sack quarterback. But you know what? Can offset not sacking the quarterback? Turn the football over. And that's what seems doable right now until Terry Fontenot goes out and trades for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. I know, look, I love that's exactly why I said that, Aaron, because I wanted to see that look on your face, sir. Yes. So, but yeah, in all seriousness, though, I feel like this team has to, and it kind of reminds me of the 2016 team. I know they might make you cringe a little bit too, Aaron, because you think about, what that team was able to do, putting up 30 plus points, turning people over, and another thing happened in that season, but we ain't gonna talk about that, Jimmy. We ain't gonna get there. We're gonna leave that alone. So
we're gonna move
I think
the happy place.
Yes, we're gonna stay in the happy place. But yeah, I like what I saw with Jordan going out there, second play of the game. Force fumble and recovery. Boom. I'll get the interception. I love seeing guys going out there and making plays in crucial moments too, right? Not necessarily for the forced fumble, but that interception, those guys were driving. They were marching that football right down the field, and then Jordan decided to say, "Hey, I'm gonna take the ball away from you, and we're gonna give our offense another opportunity to score." So I think that was the thing that really stood out to me. I'm saying, okay, this is something that I see on film that they can do, and not necessarily sitting up here crying and screaming about what they aren't doing. So if they're actually turning guys over, even and Nate Landman had a punch out, on Baker Mayfield. Those are the type of things that you need to continue to do. Go get the ball, because in moments where it was hard to watch, in a moment where they had to pass the football and you just did not see anyone even smell Baker Mayfield. He just wasn't under any type of pressure whatsoever. So if you can't do that, you better be able to take the football away, because that's the thing that's going to turn the team around and get extra possessions for your offense, who is expected coming into the season, was expected to put up 30 plus points a game.
Indeed. So what about you, Tori? When you think of maybe some of the good that you saw to the defense maybe early, what were some of the things that impressed you?
So I have 4 words. Jessie Bates the third. I don't think
I call him Jordan, Tori. Sorry.
I mean, I do not think it can be overstated how important this man is to this team, to this unit. He's every penny you pay him.
Yeah.
Worth it. I really do think that this is somebody who took to heart what happened against Seattle. You talk to him in that locker room after the loss to Seattle, and you hear what he says about kind of the unacceptable way of playing from this secondary. And I think that what he did in that second play of the game, punching the ball out, was a statement to not just the Bucs, but a statement to his own team to be like, hey guys, we're turning this up another notch, and I'm going to lead us in doing that, and you're going to follow. I truly think that moment to me was so indicative of who Jessie Bates is. And then of course the interception later where he just like beats his guy. I mean, he just goes up and grabs the ball out of the air. Even Baker Mayfield after the game was like, it was literally just a hell of a play, because that's the type of play and the type of person that Jessie Bates is. So again, that cannot be overstated how important this man is to this Falcons team.
Yeah, I think so too. And, the secondary just continues to shine. But like you said, Tori, he leads the way. He's setting the tone where he's saying, I'm going to force a fumble. I am going to pick this off when it looks like, hey, the Bucs are going to drive down the field. And as you see him, obviously we saw AJ Terrell do some good things, yesterday too, but not just yesterday. We've seen this now twice in the last several weeks. I think it's been 2 in the last 3 weeks. So you're starting to kind of see him rub off and his expectations, like we talked about Kirk's expectations on offense. Jessie Bates III is one of those veterans on defense who is saying, hey, I'm raising the level of my play. I want to see you guys do the same. So for you, Free, what was maybe something early that you saw from this defense that you actually liked?
Yeah, it's basically piggybacking on what Tori and Jarvis has said with Jessie Bates, where I've said many times on my podcast on Locked On Falcons this year that like on offense, your MVP is Bijan Robinson. On defense, your MVP is Jessie Bates. He seems to come up with these timely plays, these timely turnovers, and especially against division opponents. He's been doing it since he got here. Last year, it just feels like a lot of his signature moments come against a divisional team, and they sort of, you got to have it. And a lot of these games that are very close, they don't win these games without Jessie Bates getting that pick six against the Saints last year, or getting that turnover or 2 turnovers against the Bucs on Sunday. But yeah, when you talk about AJ Terrell, it's nice to see AJ Terrell finally turning the ball over. We talked about this on the postcast, where it's like 2 interceptions in 3 weeks after 0 interceptions in 2 years. And so it's nice to see your playmakers really step up, especially in the secondary, because as Jarvis is saying, we know that the Falcons pass rush is by no means a juggernaut. And so I think a big reason why the Falcons struggled against the Seahawks a week ago was because, they were getting pressure for the first time really this season, and they weren't really making the plays on the back end. And that was disappointing because the secondary has been the strength of this defense, not only this year, but even going back to last year. And so when they're not making plays, bad things tend to happen, because that's the one strength of your team. And we saw on Sunday against the Bucs, the secondary absolutely was making the plays, and was a big reason why the Falcons were able to win.
Yeah. So last night on Sports Extra, we talked about the identity of the Falcons team overall, but I want to go to defense, right? And I'm sure we all have a word on what we think that defense looked like and what our one word would be to describe them for the first half of the season. So I'm going to challenge you guys, starting with Jarvis, to give me one word that you want to define this defense at the end of the second half of the season, or the end of the regular season.
Opportunistic. You have to continue to make this a trend. This is, and eventually become who you are, and being able to take the ball away, because that is, as a former defensive lineman, it's going to be hard for me to say. That can probably be a little bit more important than sacking the quarterback. Now you got the strip sack that's involved in that, but that's one thing. But when you're talking about being able to take the ball away in a key moment where a team is driving, that is momentum changing type stuff. So I think opportunistic is the word that I would like to see now and going forward.
How about you, Tori? Your one word.
Consistent. I feel like it's ebbed and flowed a little bit too much, even from quarter to quarter, not just even game to game. So I think I would like to see in the second half, just feeling like we know who this team is, to Jarvis's point, know who this team is and what they're going to look like coming out every single time they come out.
Yeah, exactly. Free, how about you?
I'll go with timely. They seem to make the plays at the timely moment in the game that they need to in order to win the game. It's basically the defense is quote unquote good enough to win, and hopefully in the second half of the season they'll be just good. That will be how it changes, and so we won't have it's good enough. It's actually good. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, the win overall was good. I'm sure you like that, because we did, and we are going to talk about that in What's Next. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks also filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have all-in pricing. It's a toggling feature that shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Also, they give you seat views, so you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and they have a Game Time ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So after you wrap up Atlanta Football Party, make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off, and you can go right to the App Store and download that Game Time app as soon as you wrap up our show, because what time is it? It is game time. So, Aaron, one of the things that I was thinking about was the fact that, and we kind of talked about it here and there throughout the show, but it was really good to see the Falcons bounce back in a big way from what was a very disheartening loss to the Seattle Seahawks at home last week. And then they go on the road to get their third win of the season. So what was the most impressive part of this 31-26 win over the Bucs for you?
I think it was seeing the offense rebound after a very rough week. And we talked about it earlier with Kirk Cousins. And, I think you can make an argument that the Seattle game was probably his worst game of the season. And then you can probably make an argument that, I don't know where you stack these two Bucs games, but like the stat line looks more impressive in the first matchup with the 509 yards. But I think you can probably make a pretty compelling argument that he played even better this past Sunday against the Bucs defense, even though he wasn't forced to throw the ball 58 times in this one. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to see, because we talked about it last week on the football party, which was like, we'll learn a lot about this team on how they respond to that Seahawks loss. Do they bounce back and play a winning football game? And they absolutely did that. And to see that from their offense, which, again, while the defense is a work in progress, like, we know that if this team is going to be, successful, it's going to be the offense that's carrying them. And to sort of see them respond coming off of a bad game and bounce back and respond to adversity and all those various things, like, those are really promising signs of being like, hey, it may not always be perfect for the rest of the next 9 games on either side of the ball, but you can always count on this team to respond, to circle the wagons, to rally the troops, all the cliche statements that you want to see. And that is a sign of a good football team. As we say, it's like, it's not perfect. It's not always pretty with the Atlanta Falcons, but at the core, some, peeking through the surface every now and then, you're like, they actually might be a good football team. And so those are the things that really encourage me from Sunday's win.
All right, cool. And what about you, JD? What impressed you? What encouraged you from the win Sunday?
Jarvis, you're muted.
Hey, Jarvis, I think you might have muted yourself.
Sorry about that, guys.
We actually want to hear what you have to say.
Right. Thank you. I think for me, I like what Raheem Morris is setting from a culture standpoint, going back to being able to go forward on 4th down and understanding what you need and what you, because he talked about the South, right? Talking about running the South, and I remember when during the game, after I think it was coming out of halftime, he was like, "Hey, we just trying to get out of here with a win," and that's the mindset that you have to have in these divisional games. I know people want to get all upset and talk about the defense, but hey, it is what it is. Defense is what it is at this point in the season. We understand who they are and what they cannot do. But the thing that kind of encourages me and what I've been impressed by is your head coach understanding what that is, understanding who you are and where you are as a team, as a whole. Because this offense, you see, this offense has just been coming around, doing outside of the Seattle game. You just been seeing them consistently getting better. And that defense is kind of waned a little bit. But for them to come out and force these turnovers in this particular game, that gives you hope. That gives you light. So I feel like Raheem Morris is just setting the tone for this team, setting the culture, and he has a really good feel and vibe for who his team is and what they're capable of. So for me, I feel like that is the thing that I've been most impressed with, because Raheem Morris is a guy that I was impressed with. I've been impressed with since he was an assistant with his team at the first go around, and he's really starting to establish himself as a real head coach in the NFL. And I'm glad that he got a second chance to be able to do so.
Indeed. Tori, how about you? Impressed and encouraged by what Sunday?
Kirk Cousins versus Tampa Bay. Just full stop, period. This man, I don't know what he is like eating before he plays. Like, I don't know what it is, but this man comes alive against the Bucs, and it is a sight to see. I do think that Yeah,
It's
and
Kirkos.
something, yeah, something that I think I'm looking forward to diving in once I do watch all 22 is what Kirk was talking about after the game and the protection that he felt like he had. This is the first time that we saw like extensive explosives from this
Yes.
offense, and that was something that at the very beginning of training camp, that was one of the words that Kirk wanted to use to describe this offense was explosive, and we've seen it in fits and spurts, but to see it over the course of 3 times and to end those 3 times in touchdowns,
Yes,
I think
yes.
speaks to also not just like Kirk's understanding of the offense and what he has and what he's seeing, but how much time in the pocket I do think he was given
Mhm.
against the Bucks yesterday. I think he said that even on the Bijan Robinson touchdown, Bijan was his 5th read. Like
Yes,
he
yes.
had the time to progress and to figure out and to allow a lot of these routes to get to the top of their route, which for Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney was at the end zone. So I think that is something that I was really impressed by and something that I really am looking forward to diving into watching the film to really see kind of that progression from Kirk, which I think speaks well to his understanding of the offense and what the offensive line is doing.
Yeah, to think that they scored the first 3 times and they weren't even in the red zone. Like you said, it was the explosives that did it. Yeah, I was actually impressed and excited about seeing that too, because it's something that we've all known. We've saw in training camp and we're like, okay, can we get a little bit more of that? So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool as well. And so one other question before we wrap up, I thought this was pretty cool that a Falcons player, Mike Hughes to be exact, was thanked by a Florida trooper who broke his ankle on that final play on the win against the Bucks. And I thought to myself, that's a pretty classy act for Mike Hughes, because obviously you're just in there, you're the Hail Mary, you're just trying to get out of town. But he had enough humanity, if you will, to help that state trooper when he got in trouble with that ankle injury.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was honestly in the moment. We were watching, we were talking it up in the press box, and like that was my heart goes out to that state trooper because they were just turned completely away, had no idea what was happening. So yeah, thoughts, prayers go out. Hopefully it's not too bad. It's a quick recovery for that state trooper, because that was a tough watch. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah.
ditto. What Tori said.
Good guy, Mike. You know.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Like, hey, Mike, we now know Mike can do things on and off the field just as good because he's that good. Oh, and shout out to Raheem Morris, because you know what? Brother was casket sharp in pregame in what I think was a pewter suit. So the irony of it was not lost on me. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you next time.